So we are now in this session, which will of course be one of the most interesting ones of the day. We will be focusing on building long-term resilience. And I think it fits very nicely following on, the grand opening that we had this morning, where we heard from our distinguished speakers, including our EU Commissioner for Energy, Commissioner Dan Jurgensen, about the context that we are having, the geopolitical context. So what we will be doing in this session is really to focus on how can we move from constant emergency crisis management to building more long-term resilience. And to do that, we have a very fascinating panel lined up for you, ranging from government representatives to stakeholders. And we also have a very distinguished panelist member who will be a bit later joining us. So I think it will be a very, very interesting discussion. We are a bit behind schedule, so I will reduce a bit my opening remarks here because we will be closing this panel discussion at 4:45 and not 1 second later. And of course, many of the things I wanted to tell you here as warming up to the session have been said already, throughout the day today, how crucial energy efficiency is for our energy transition, how crucial it is not only to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but also to make sure that we are independent, building our resilience, and of course, reducing the energy bills, both for our consumers and our industries. So in Europe, we are very, very committed to energy efficiency and energy policy in general. Oh, by the way, for the ones who do not know me yet, my name is Roselinde van der Vlies. I am Director for Energy Efficiency Policies in the European Commission. So this is basically the background here, and really, really delighted to be here with you. So without further ado, I would like to invite our amazing panelists through the stage. And we will start with Martin McCluskey. He is a Minister for Energy Consumption in the UK, also responsible for energy efficiency. So please, a hand for Martin, please. Welcome. Grab a seat, Martin. Great. So then we also have Cristina Gamboa, CEO of World Green Building Council. So here's Cristina, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, Cristina. Then we also have Mr. Hugo Briones, Undersecretary of Energy, all the way from Chile. Hugo. Welcome very much. And then we also have Diana Lizette Olispas, Vice Minister for Renewable Energy and Electricity from Honduras. Or not yet? Okay. No, not yet. So, I will immediately take my seat. I think I can leave this one here, and we will go here. Oh my God.
I'll just introduce myself. Yasmin Abraham from Cambo Energy Group.
Welcome. Oh my God, my big apologies. There must be something slightly wrong with my briefing, but we're good. We are in the session Building Long-Term Resilience, ladies and gentlemen. So, welcome to my amazing panel, and I will start with you. Hang on. So, we will start with maximum 3-minute opening statements, and I have to make it up to you. And I'm going to now say your right name. Jasmine Abraham. Yes, I have my notes. So this is actually a lesson, ladies and gentlemen. Rely on your paper version and not on your electronic version. Jasmine.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. My name is Yasmin Abraham. So happy to be here. I'm president and co-founder of Cambo Energy Group. We are a certified minority-owned business based right here in Canada, and all of our work for the last 17 years has been around supporting underserved communities when it comes to accessing all of the important energy efficiency programs that are out there. We work with Indigenous communities, tribal communities, newcomers, immigrants, low-income households, to really ensure that those groups that have really been hardest hit, they have the highest bills, typically live in the most inefficient homes, can access the programs. Our approach is always to lean on communities. We know that communities know what's best for them, and so we hire those communities to do the work. And as a result, 82% of our organization reflects those communities. And we've had the privilege and really the joy of working with hundreds of thousands of BIPOC households, over 70 First Nations communities, and upgraded over 6,000 low-income homes. And so all of our insights and all of my recommendations and thoughts really come from, being at kitchen tables, crawling through crawl spaces, doing air sealing, and sitting on the back of trucks in community. And when I think about resilience, and especially long-term resilience, we're really thinking about investing now to withstand future shocks. Excuse me. And typically when we think about resilient infrastructure, we think about investing in roads, we think about investing in buildings, we think about investing in infrastructure. But what about investing in people and investing in communities? A home can really be resilient and a building can be resilient, but the people in it might not be. People who might not trust the utility, might not understand why programs are available. Maybe they don't speak the language. Maybe they don't know how to read their bill. And all of these impacts really lead to a non-resilient community. And so for us, we really see the opportunity to invest in community to build that long-term resilience as part of the work. We always say, communities know the challenge and what they are challenged with. Communities are closest to that challenge, but furthest from the resources. So I'll just leave it there and look forward to the discussion.
Excellent. Thank you, Jasmine. So really, your message is very strong. Invest in people to build resilience.
That's
great.
Right.
Thank you. So now we go to the Undersecretary of Energy of Chile. Hugo, please, you have 3 minutes for your opening statements.
Okay, thank you. And read a very short few words. And for us, es un privilegio para nosotros participar en este panel. ¿Se escucha?
Sí, se escucha. Dale un minuto para que...
Junto a tantos líderes aquí reunidos de distintos lugares del mundo y que comparten una convicción que nosotros tenemos, que es la resiliencia energética, y que se construye con una política pública, con inversión inteligente y con una voluntad de proteger primero a quienes resultan más afectados por los shocks internacionales. Chile vive una década de transformación energética muy profunda. Hoy cerca del 70% de nuestra generación eléctrica es renovable y aspiramos a alcanzar el pic del 100% a fines del 2030. Para hablar realmente de un sistema resiliente que protege a quienes más lo necesitan, debemos también pensar en cómo estas cifras se ven reflejadas en la vida de las familias que son más vulnerables. Sin ir más lejos, en el 2025, Chile registró un promedio de 15 horas de interrupción eléctrica en el servicio domiciliario por usuario, mientras que el 64% del consumo final de energía aún provenía de fuentes fósiles, en su mayoría importadas y expuestas a la volatilidad de los mercados internacionales. Bueno, este es un desafío enorme, contar con un sistema eléctrico nacional cada vez más capaz de asegurar el suministro. Hemos avanzado significativamente en el almacenamiento en estos últimos años, permitiendo alcanzar 2 gigawatts en capacidad instalada y 6 gigawatts actualmente en construcción. Pero la resiliencia también depende de la transmisión. Necesitamos que la electricidad generada en los desiertos del norte de nuestro país pueda llegar a las zonas con más disponibilidad de radiación solar. De hecho, tenemos a la radiación solar calificada como la mejor del mundo en el norte de Chile. Por eso hoy tenemos en construcción alrededor de 2.200 kilómetros de infraestructura en transmisión, fundamentales para reducir los vertimientos de energía actuales en energía renovable y aprovechar de este modo el resto del país.
Able to take advantage of this and to have the rest of the country take advantage of this opportunity as well. So because of these long-term efforts that we're making, in May of this year, we presented a plan that is
2024-2026-2030, un documento de trabajo con 6 pilares, con KPI medibles, cuantificables y en plazos definidos, de tal manera que nos podamos preparar para obtener los mejores resultados que duren la mayor cantidad de tiempo en términos de resiliencia en nuestro sistema. Finalmente, comentar con ustedes que desde Chile estamos disponibles para aportar nuestra experiencia a esta conversación y, por supuesto, aprender de las lecciones y experiencias, buenas prácticas de quienes hoy nos acompañan. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And thank you for really sharing with us your journey in Chile to reduce your dependency on fossil fuels, both through the renewables, but also underlining the need to have the correct infrastructure in your country to really reduce this dependency and increase resilience. So now we move to you, Christina, and we would be really happy to listen to your pitch to start off our panel.
Thank you. It's so interesting to follow these pitches because there are different scales to embracing the conversation around resilience. So when we were preparing for this panel in the brief, it meant we were being asked, what does it mean to build resilient energy systems? What are the structural policies in response to this crisis? What lessons to learn? There's so many, but I think one thing that I've been thinking about is the resilient energy systems. It's no longer a future issue, it's just present today. Sometimes when we think resiliency is something for the future resilience, but actually what we're living today means that we have to embrace that adaptation to the changing circumstances. And really, as we go forward, what I want to also underscore is that we all have different aspects to the answer to this, but it will require a lot of collaboration across the full value chain and with policymakers to really respond to the times we're living. I think the recent energy shock has demonstrated that there are significant opportunities to deliver this a more efficient system. But I think also something is quite clear. I think we are in the era, the age of electrification, and this is accelerating because of the crisis. But it's also the age of smart electrification. And maybe this conference in the future will be called around that, smart electrification, because it is a systemic response that we require now. So I work at the World Green Building Council. It's one of the largest networks present in over 80 countries. And what we are doing with that huge network is ensuring that we are working with policymakers to have better policies to guide the direction of travel, but also accelerate local implementation through those national coalitions, because the world is very diverse and it requires different solutions. But what is clear is that that efficient, all-electric, flexible system has to be designed to support people. Businesses in this shock have been adapting to this, and there's a recent survey. We also joined, the Canadian government spoke this morning about the Electrify Now campaign that is shaping up to COP31. We welcome the Canadian leadership in supporting that campaign. And in that campaign, businesses are saying that by 2035, 90% of their operations will be all electric, that it's a no-brainer. So there is a direction of travel that businesses are going in different velocities around the world, but it's also then how can we have a conversation with policymakers to uplift that? Because if the demand side sectors like buildings are in the journey and understood more as a part of the energy system, it's an asset to the energy system, we can help consumers have long-term resilience to pricing, right? We're talking here about the integrated kits to electrify these solutions, but also then we will have less demand of resources to be investing in expansion of grids, and that requires a different mindset of thinking how this all-electric system will work into practice. We're hearing the energy demand is going to grow, and it's already been growing in different moments in time. We've had the cooling challenge will come, and we will have to be working with the urban side solutions to ensure that if air conditioning is in place, it doesn't heat up more the cities, because it will. We also have to be working and integrating the heat pumps in a better way with the storage and helping the grid also have flex responses in order to continue to help the decarbonization journey. So I'm referring to this agenda of the Electrotech agenda that is empowering consumers to have their assets be more of a prosumer that can unlock those opportunities for innovation and that low carbon economic growth. Because I think, and with this, I go back to the resilience side. As people gain greater control over their energy use and we're not seeing things disconnected, they will be seeing reduced exposure to price volatility, and more reliable and comfortable living environments. And it will require a holistic response. But that sort of thinking, I think, is what is going to get us to a better outcomes when it means that this pathway of the age of electrification can also be the most affordable and powerful way to improve people's lives.
Thank you so much, Christina. That was really very, very clear messages. I really liked also the fact that you basically said the future is now. So indeed, very often when we speak about resilience, we think about the future. To underline also that, you know, we need a system resilience where we should not forget also the consumers, a bit also what Jasmine said before. And now I think we move to you, Martin.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Rosalind, and thanks to the IEA for convening this conference and this panel. I think it's important in any space like this at the moment when we're discussing issues affecting energy efficiency and resilience, to just acknowledge the kind of unique context that we're working in here, which is the second fossil fuel crisis in a decade. And I don't think we can emphasise that enough, because I think for those who might suggest that we should move away from what we're doing in terms of renewables and the other areas that we're discussing today, the answer to a fossil fuel crisis that we're facing at the moment is not more fossil fuels. And the reason I underline that is because I think the challenges that we are facing and the lack of energy efficiency in some spaces is not just a risk to our energy security, that's well-trodden arguments, but also a risk to our prosperity and also to social cohesion in the societies that we are trying to navigate these issues at the moment. And you know, if you look at the UK, hundreds of thousands of children live in households that are suffering from fuel poverty, where we're struggling to make ends meet. We have cold homes that are increasing the health risks to our population during the winter, increasing the risk of things like heart attacks, other disease, strokes, putting more burden on people's mental health. So it's not just increasing energy resilience and energy efficiency for the sake of it, it's actually about how do we create an outcome that is going to create a more socially cohesive, more prosperous society. That takes me to the second point. We are moving at pace on this in the UK, and we're not shying away from that because of political pressure. We have a clean power by 2030 target that we are very focused on, and Dr. Birol in the introduction earlier today talked about packages of measures for energy efficiency, and that's what we are doing through our Warm Homes Plan. So our Warm Homes Plan is a £15 billion plan, the biggest financial commitment to home energy upgrades in our country's history, and it is there to also leverage money from the private sector. It's not just that 15 billion, but that sits alongside what we're doing in terms of building out the grid. Great British Energy, which is taking public stakes in energy projects with a capitalisation of over £8 billion, and all of the other work that we're doing to invest in grid across the country. But it's a real package, so it also deals with regulation, because we know, again, that government can't do everything, but we need to incentivise people to do the right thing. So we've introduced minimum energy efficiency standards in the private rental sector and the non-domestic sector as well, to make sure that buildings are being properly decarbonised and that people are meeting their obligations under those minimum energy efficiency standards. But I would return to the point that Yasmin made at the start of this, which is how do we put people at the centre of everything that we're doing. In our £15 billion plan, £5 billion of that is for low-income households, so targeted directly at low-income households, encouraging them to take up the offer of heat pumps, encouraging them to decarbonise with solar and batteries and insulation to keep their homes warm. We need to bring people with us, but I think finally there's a really important political point here, which is there are many forces at work, bad actors around the world at the moment, who would say that what we are doing is not taking us in the right direction, which I obviously disagree with. But I think it's by bringing populations with us, showing them how they can benefit from the energy efficiency measures that we're talking about at this conference today. It's how ultimately we help to build a consensus for everything that we're doing in terms of renewables and clean power, which I think why, to Yasmin's point again, putting people at the heart of this is so important, yes, to get the right outcomes for them, but also to make sure that we're constantly building that case and building that support for what we're trying to achieve.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Martin. And I think it also builds a bit on what Christina said about, you know, the importance of collaboration. And I'm also very interested to hear that, with your investment plan, you also leverage the private investments. I think that's really, really important, this collaboration between the public and the private sector. And of course, great to hear that you have specific attention to combat energy poverty in the UK and protect the vulnerable people. Could I maybe ask you to dive a bit more deeper into, how you increase the resilience in UK of the vulnerable people? How do you really make sure that demand-side measures that you are taking in the UK are reaching these people?
I think around the world, and many of you in this room will have had similar conversations within government or within the organisations that you work in about how you are able to provide short-term support for people at the same time as keeping your eyes really focused on the long-term targets that you've got. So in the UK, we've had direct support for low-income households through a £150, that's about 10% of the average energy bill, a £150 discount on people's energy bills over the winter. We've just expanded that last year to reach 6 million households across the UK. We've also taken, and again, this is it's a political choice that we've made to take some of the levies that are supporting renewable generation off of energy bills and off of consumers and into general taxation. So really making that socialising that risk for everyone rather than saying that energy consumers are going to pick up the price of that. But long term, we have to stay absolutely focused on overall reduction in demand, which is why the Warm Homes Plan is so important. Making sure, for example, that homes are properly insulated is really important, but actually the big shift in the Warm Homes Plan compared to previous UK government schemes was in moving just from fabric of buildings to things like solar, batteries and heat pumps. So actually giving people access to the technologies that may have only in the past been available to those with deep pockets, but actually providing them with funding, whether that's grant support or loans, to enable them to actually take advantage of that and reduce their energy bills. And so there's a whole, there's a lot of other measures within the Warm Homes Plan which I could talk about, whether it's the regulation I mentioned a moment ago, or to build on that point around financing. We also have a Warm Homes Fund as part of the Warm Homes Plan, which is innovative capital to try and again leverage more from private finance and from others in order to get the biggest impact. One final thing I would say about, and maybe it's not specifically a demand reduction, but I think it's really important in terms of bringing people with us, is community energy. So within the Warm Homes Plan, we have plans for community batteries, for community-owned solar. We have a local power plan, which is really trying to put the levers of generation into the hands of communities. So a community can be in control not just of their building decarbonisation and their energy efficiency, but also in control of the levers of the generation within their own community.
Amazing. Great ideas coming from the UK. I'm actually quite curious, Christina, I saw you were nodding and looking quite happy when Martin was speaking, but would you have any advice from your side for governments to really make sure that the building sector can provide solutions to build this long-term resilience?
Yeah, I was nodding because I'm living in London, and I just lived through a heat wave in London last week, where I have a very efficient warm home, and the hot air wouldn't leave, and I would be at 30 degrees, and we had hospitals closing, schools closing. So that's why the resilience is here, and all that government response and that leadership is so much needed. It's hitting home. And and I was thinking the adaptation side. Last week we hosted an event in London, Climate Action Week, where we had Lord Adair Turner from the Energy Transition Commission, also Dave Turk, the former Deputy Secretary from the Department of Energy in the US, and they both coincided that the other side of this resilience and adaptation is that we have to adapt. So drop the woolly trousers, he said. Drop we also have to adapt. And that reminded me of the Singaporeans, where they have a great campaign of having people adapt to live in 25 degrees. So don't overdo it with the cooling. Also, let the city cool. But so that's why I was nodding so much. A head trip in a panel. Anyways. But what I would say, we did, World GPC does also policy advocacy. We're a business-driven network, so I guess my voice is a business voice. We represent over 51,000 companies worldwide that have been voluntarily creating all these markets and opportunity, and it's ripe, the right moment. All this innovation of the electrification agenda is just ramping up the uptake of all these solutions. So I had three things here that I thought of course, it depends on the context, but I wrote down three things. Of course, first, reduce energy demand. But also, how do you do it? I think we have to set some binding targets on energy efficiency for the worst performing buildings to rapidly cut energy demand and protect households from future price shocks. That can be done. That's called minimum energy performance requirements. And you can go for the bigger buildings, and government buildings could lead by example. 2, reduce fossil fuel dependence. We're talking about here a shock. So we must accelerate electrification measures to strengthen energy security and reduce exposure to global fossil fuel markets, supporting the transition to clean heating solutions, clean cooking solutions. Imagine in that heat wave, people in kitchens in gas stoves instead of being induction, all of that. And of course, in the cooling space, ensure that the appliances are efficient, but it's a whole system approach, so we don't undo one thing with the other. And my third that I had is ensure fairness. Because ensure that, for example, the renovation finance is suitable and accessible for low-income households and for those in energy poverty. So that's why it was resounding to me. So the transition is affordable and socially just. And for new construction in geographies, like I'm from Latin America, that are building also because people need homes, they will be building, ensuring that, for example, those homes can access green mortgages, green finance, and that they are designed from the start. Because what happens with efficiency, it starts by good design. And so we have to start by locking in all those improvements in codes, in building energy performance codes, and of course, enabling all these solutions to empower communities to take control of their consumption and ensure that they can have a prosperous and healthy life, because we are addressing indoor air quality, LED lighting, good lighting, kids can learn, people can recover more quickly in hospitals, et cetera, et cetera. It's the world, it's the communities and the places that the world deserves, I think, through these sorts of measures, and we can build in more security, competitiveness, and affordability throughout the system.
Great, thank you very much, Christina. Okay, I would like now to move from the building sector to the transport sector. And here, Hugo, it would be great if you could share with us, what Chile is doing to make the transport sector more resilient, also in the longer term.
Sí, muchas gracias. Solo referirme en el término de la construcción de viviendas y edificios. En Chile hay algunos proyectos en los que se está pensando en que son los ventanales de los edificios grandes pueden tener paneles en el fondo y que de esa forma pudieran reducir el consumo de ese mismo edificio. Y también en el caso del gobierno nuestro apoya ciertos planes para poder aislar en termopaneles y aislar respecto a la temperatura en colegios o en viviendas que son más necesitadas, de tal manera que haya una posibilidad de reducir el consumo, mejorar la eficiencia y también aumenta la salud, porque hay menos contaminantes al interior, digamos. Solo complementar eso en términos y muy de acuerdo a lo que decían recién. En términos de la electromovilidad, nosotros creemos que sí, el transporte es parte de la economía nuestra, es fundamental para cualquiera de las economías. Nosotros en Chile ya tenemos del orden del 70% de en la región metropolitana, 70% de todo lo que son los buses urbanos ya con energía eléctrica, abastecidos solo con energía eléctrica. Y son del orden de 4.000. Y pensamos que de aquí a finales de este año podemos incrementar eso en un 10%, a lo menos, llegando al 80% aproximadamente en la región metropolitana. Pero ya a nivel del país, de las 11 regiones, ya tenemos un programa para electrificar con buses y con transporte público que sea absolutamente renovable, digamos, sin combustibles fósiles. Que en el fondo lo que nos hace es blindarnos de las modalidades del mercado, ¿no? Tal como lo hemos vivido en el último tiempo. Gracias a eso y a la política que teníamos nosotros, no afectó tanto en la capital nuestra esta reciente restricción de combustibles fósiles, digamos, que son importados en el caso nuestro. Hoy día podemos decir que con estos logros solo un país en el mundo nos supera, digamos. estamos en segundo lugar. Y en Latinoamérica, una ciudad nuestra, en el norte de Chile, que se llama Copiapó, ya tiene 100% del transporte público eléctrico. Es una ciudad eminentemente minera. Nosotros en el programa que decía al comienzo, la ruta energética al 2030, tenemos una ley de electromovilidad, almacenamiento y electromovilidad, la que queremos fortalecer con reglamentos de tal manera que podamos propiciar aún más y asegurar el éxito de esta política nuestra en términos del transporte. Es así que también tenemos programas para en regiones poder que sean programas que sean acceso a subsidio para taxistas. Y lo que queremos en el futuro es que esto no solamente sea el transporte público, sino que el transporte de carga y otros, el que también podamos llevar a la electromovilidad. En eso estamos trabajando en nuestro país. Eso.
Thank you very much. And maybe, Jasmine, let's zoom in back on the community level. And you have worked with more than thousands of households and communities. So could you maybe share with us kind of like what is the magic formula, if you discovered one, to build resilience, at the community level?
It's a big question, but I think you're right. We have spent 17 years doing this work and have had the privilege to work with many different governments and communities over that time across Canada and the US. And I think something happens when we work with utilities and governments who have the understanding that people approach and participate in programs differently based on their lived experience. I think we're very, very good in this sector of segmenting programs by building types, right? We have commercial, we have industrial, we have multifamily, we have residential. But our communities also participate differently based on their lived experience. And I think what we've seen is that, in Canada, for instance, we have the highest immigration per capita in the world. 23% of Canadians are immigrants, myself included. 27% of Canadians are people of color, myself included. And understanding that, ensuring that we have programs like the one Martin talked about for low-income households is fundamental. We need to remove that income barrier that so many people have to, not everybody has $18,000 to just put in a heat pump, of course, especially in this affordability crisis when consumer debt has never been higher. But there's also this understanding that there's an intersectionality of race, of language, of social issues that also prevent people from participating in these programs. And when we can create programs that are delivered by community, we offer this opportunity to not only build participation by those communities, but build workforce that represent the community. So we're hiring those communities to deliver within their communities so that, rooms like this and conferences like this start to look a bit more like the communities that we're serving. And so it's just we talk about this multi-solving impact, and I think, we all know the health and the financial impacts of energy efficiency, but there's also this huge economic opportunity to hire those people and those firms to deliver the work themselves. So those are a few of the magic ingredients.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think, empowerment is, I think, one of those magic ingredients, as you just said, and affordability and really involving the people themselves. No, that's really great. So let me turn back to you, Martin. So having listened now to this exchange, what kind of policy actions do you think governments should be taking across the globe to really build this long-term resilience and not only be kind of in an emergency crisis mode?
I think it's, as I said at the outset, it's about keeping your eyes focused on the long term. But I think in the political environment that we're currently working in, where there is a lot of political opposition, and we have to kind of acknowledge that there is political opposition to a lot of what we're trying to achieve. But we have to bear in mind that most of what we're doing is popular. When it actually comes down to communities and individuals and households receiving home efficiency upgrades, receiving insulation, getting a solar panel on their roof, these are popular policies that can help us make and win the argument. But just to build on what Yasmin was saying a moment ago, one of the areas that we've also focused on as part of the Warm Homes Plan that I think in other countries, we probably have something to help other countries with in this space, and we could probably learn, is on workforce development. Because if you think about what we have to achieve over the next 5, 10, 15 years in terms of adaptation of our buildings, we need a workforce to deliver that. And a lot of these jobs are trades jobs, they're joiners, they're plumbers, they're electricians, they're people who are skilled individuals that we need to train in order to deliver what we need to achieve. So one of the things that's part of our Warm Homes Plan is a workforce task force that we have convened alongside the UK's Trade Union Congress to look at how those jobs as they're being created are high quality, well paid, good skills being communicated to people, but also ideally unionised as well. So how can we actually take this opportunity for all this work that we're doing, all this public money that's going into these schemes, and make sure that people are actually getting employment, jobs, and a future out of it as well? So again, it comes to that point of government can't do everything, but you can set the train tracks and you can leverage what you've got in order to get more out of private finance, out of workforce, out of the education sector. And I think that's where we all need to work together and learn from what each other are doing in our different contexts, but in order to try and accelerate this as fast as possible.
Excellent. No, thank you for raising that, and it makes me think about the term that was coined this morning on kind of like being climate competitive, exactly. That's of course also capitalizing on the workforce in the national countries. Now, Christina, if you could advise your government to take some policy actions.
Another government.
What would you say?
Yeah, tell me. Policy actions.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm obsessed with this idea of integrating systems. And I think we have a huge opportunity also to work better in systemic way with utilities and the different elements of sectors that are critical demand users of energy at a bigger scale. So if we want electrification to progress at scale, it's around changing how we use energy, not only in buildings, but in transport, and also industrial decarbonization that we was in a panel this morning. So I guess my request would be, sometimes we have here some great perspectives, but it requires at the government level maybe more interdepartmental collaboration. Because for many years we have had, and it happens still in other levels, we speak of energy here, of housing over here, the utilities in some countries still are in the business of selling more and more and more, and not thinking what are the systemic savings of evolving with innovation. So I guess my other request beyond the three ones I gave is to continue to improve that dialogue, but to be practical, to bring out some improvements in procurement, government procurement, for example, and work with cities. Cities sometimes can also move much faster than national governments. It doesn't have to be so slow. And also empower consumers. Consumers, this system is also, and it's happening, consumers are taking a role, and sometimes, right, they are responding to the crisis saying, I'm done, this is ridiculous, what am I paying for this gas? I'm going to try to solve it out on my own. And we see huge countries like Pakistan autonomously from the consumer base installing without a policy framework. So I guess I think we need to. There are interesting instances where that happens. World GBC is also an official observer of the UNFCCC process, and we're very much involved in campaigning towards these moments where we know at those moments policies are not decided, but it builds momentum. So I would think that there is an opportunity also to more, and also with the influence of the IEA and other powerhouse data, to continue to improve the policy signals in a more coherent way, if possible, through regions, because that will bring more investor certainty, even though this transition is already happening because of the volatility and the flight towards security and all the innovation of the electrification agenda. Yeah, and more systemic. The efficient grid responsive buildings is an amazing opportunity. They're so interesting how they can also unlock less demands from the Treasury to finance expansion of the grids. Buildings that are responsible and shift loads can also enable better pricing for consumers, but also empower consumers to know when the energy is more green or really powered by fossil fuels, and shift all of that. There's a collaboration agenda in that space to ensure that the digitalization gets to consumers. But also, I think the other topic that governments could tackle in a more systemic way is all the cybersecurity risk associated with that, because all this data is getting attacked. and imagine your home being hijacked and you don't get the energy because, I don't know. Anyways, it has to be solved, but I think there's some very, very interesting and motivating agenda to tackle the topic of resilience, and it takes taking that innovation to the other side and ensuring that the loads from electric vehicles are properly integrated within the building system, and that the building system is also helping procure low carbon materials from green industrialization, and ensuring that there's a loop that there's more scale, more innovation, and that higher demand creates consistent lower pricing signals, and that we don't have like random actors in the system continuing in the inertia of just doing the same things over and over again in the last decades. That at least from buildings, it's a sector with very low productivity, and this innovation appetite, I think with the right collaboration within governments, with cities, and more systemic view on the prize to increase electrification at least by 35% globally by 2035. There is something definitely there that can take the world to growth, prosperity, and security in a better way.
Wow.
Sorry.
That were so many amazing ideas, fired off in a very, very good pace here. Thank you so much. I mean, what I really agree with you is the fact that so many things are basically interlinked, right? And I think it's particularly a challenge for many governments to, break silos between different departments, making sure that there's kind of like a seamless collaboration. And you gave the example, for example, of buildings for the energy policy and the housing. In my European government, this is exactly the case. So we are really, trying to build bridges between what we're doing in, the energy policy for buildings and the housing policy, just to give an example. And I think this must be my colleagues listening in from Brussels, just to basically say that, yes, indeed, we want to collaborate more. So they're signing with lights there. But I think, silo breaking is indeed for governments a very, very important point. But you mentioned all kinds of very, very interesting points there. Including, of course, the importance of the whole digitalization and cybersecurity. So, yeah, great. I mean, I would like to move to Hugo and basically hear your take on this. So, what policy actions should governments prioritize to build this longer-term resilience?
Sí, claro. En el caso nuestro, es un país largo, una angosta faja de tierra muy largo y en términos eléctricos y radial. Nosotros lo que estamos haciendo ya es propiciar la interconexión regional de tal manera de aumentar la resiliencia, de tal manera que con Argentina, por ejemplo, u otros países cercanos, podamos compartir las redes y podamos de esa forma, estando en este país tan largo, fortalecer las nuestras, digamos, que muchas veces por capacidad de transmisión no podemos llegar a los distintos rincones de norte a sur. Por otro lado, muy de acuerdo con las nuevas tecnologías que se están implementando, todo esto que viene con la implementación de la inteligencia artificial, las baterías y el almacenamiento, poder capacitar a nuestro personal, que en el fondo tiene que tener los conocimientos que le permitan ser autosuficiente y no depender del tercero, digamos, y en el fondo aprender. Yo creo que esa capacitación hoy día estamos en curso a poder llegar. También importante en el caso nuestro, y ya lo estamos haciendo, es dar señales claras respecto de dónde deben estar las fuentes de generación para promover al sistema eléctrico en general. No basta con dar señales que permitan a los distintos productores ubicarse donde ellos quieran, sino que donde el sistema realmente los necesita y aumente la resiliencia. En el caso nuestro debemos fortalecer la infraestructura de transmisión. La infraestructura de transmisión hoy día, que está en desarrollo, como lo decía al comienzo, necesitamos que se robustezca para poder transmitir toda la energía que sobra en el norte, que hay vertimiento hacia el sur. De esa forma los precios van a bajar, aumenta la resiliencia, la confiabilidad y también se beneficia a la comunidad entera por tarifas más eficientes y óptimas, provenientes de energías renovables y por lo tanto disminuye el consumo de combustible fósil, etc. y la contaminación. Otro tema importante también es que para que se logren estos proyectos de inversión que pueden robustecer nuestra capacidad, es mejorar toda la obtención de los permisos sectoriales que llevan a poder materializar estos proyectos. Estos permisos sectoriales hoy día demoran mucho tiempo. En el caso de transmisión podrían demorarse entre 5 y 7 años para recién llegar a construir. Lo que estamos haciendo nosotros es no bajar la calidad ni las restricciones, sino que hacer más eficientes estos procesos de permisos, de tal manera que podamos tener cuanto antes la viabilidad o el certificado ambiental para poder iniciar la construcción. Eso es, en general, lo que nosotros estamos impulsando como política de gobierno.
Thank you, Hugo. So, Yasmin, I would like to go back to your amazing experience with all these household and local communities. Could you share with us some really good examples where you saw, okay, this is really a showcase to build resilience?
Yes, oh my gosh. Yeah, so many of the communities that we work with, you know, the solutions are not that complicated, honestly. So many, especially immigrant and newcomer communities, you know, we're walking into homes where folks don't know how to program their thermostat. They don't know what the thermostat is. Many times they think they're not allowed to touch the thermostat. And so especially important when we're having heat waves like we saw in 2021, we had the heat dome in BC where 611 people died because of the heat in 4 days. And you know, those people were the most vulnerable. They were, you know, the seniors, the newcomers, the immigrants. And so it's building education for them. So a lot of the work we do is helping folks understand how their home uses energy. You know, it's energy efficiency 101. It's what's the connect. Why does my utility want me to save energy? Don't they sell me energy? Why are they giving me $50 to upgrade my insulation? What's the link between insulation and energy and climate and my bill? You know, all of us in the room could probably give that answer really quickly, but it's not something people are just know. It's not taught in schools, and it's certainly not taught when you come to a new country. And so it's really simple things about helping people understand how their home works so that they have the agency and are empowered so that when they see that brochure about a heat pump, they understand why that heat pump is important and how it's going to help them. You know, a lot of times when we're working in Indigenous communities, we're walking into homes that, you know, they just don't have an energy efficiency crisis. They have a housing crisis. And so we're walking into homes, and if we're going to be air sealing, if we're going to be doing the insulation, then we also want to be fixing the wheelchair ramp at the back. We also want to make sure the electrical is working. So it's thinking, as Christina talked about, in systems, that we're not just siloing energy efficiency with the needs of the community. So whether that's workforce development, housing construction, education, there's these really sort of pragmatic opportunities to include community to deliver the solutions.
Amazing. So really kind of like awareness raising, building trust, empowerment.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay, great. I mean, we have just a few more minutes left to wrap up. And I had some pre-prepared concluding remarks, which I will not use. But I actually have a magic pen with me. And with this pen, my panelists can make a wish. So I'll give you a few seconds to think about. So if you could make a wish, like what would happen to build long-term resilience? And then I would like you to basically use this. I will hand it to you then, the magic pen, and then you can kind of like do your magical spell and then say, you know, what is your wish? What should happen in order to build long-term resilience? And you can only pick one thing.
It's hard.
Here you go.
More effective public communication so that people can take control of their own energy efficiency and it's not all down to government.
Beautiful.
Continue to decouple the growth of the building industry that's going to happen for the growth of housing around the world. Continue to decouple it from emissions through energy efficiency, electrification, and an innovation agenda.
Gracias. Diría yo que pudiéramos fortalecer la comunicación y la integración entre políticas públicas y el sector privado y la industria, de tal manera que trabajando juntos podamos mirar hacia la comunidad, hacia la sociedad que queremos mejorar y poder hacer lo mejor por ellos en términos de calidad, tarifas y eficiencia.
I would say continue to embed social and equity goals as we transition, as the energy transitions, and bringing community stakeholders into that.
Amazing. Okay, so I'll get my pen, my magic pen back. I see there's not
we
many.
have to keep it to see if we achieve our wishes.
I will only get it back once it's achieved. Okay, great. Not many Harry Potter fans here. Okay, anyway, it doesn't really matter. Thank you very much. Amazing panel. Thank you all here for being here. I hope that we are all convinced that we already have the ingredients to build long-term resilience. And I just would like to ask you to have a very, very warm applause to our amazing panelists. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's it.